My name is Alex, and throughout my life, I've had only one goal: to uncover the hidden truth behind forgotten stories. I'm a documentarian, and my research has led me to the darkest and most abandoned places, but nothing could have prepared me for what I found in the old house on the outskirts of Oakwood. It was Christmas Eve, with the gray sky and the silent falling snow serving as the backdrop to what would become my obsession. The house was a decrepit building, once magnificent, now worn down by time and neglect. Broken windows, crumbling plaster, yet something drew me in, an almost palpable presence hidden behind those peeling walls. I had heard the stories, urban legends of a vanished family, of a lost child on Christmas night. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the house, avoiding it and crossing themselves as they passed by. They said it was cursed, that anyone who entered would never come out again. But I, Alex, couldn't resist the call of that mystery. As I approached, I noticed something unusual. Despite the abandonment, the lights of a Christmas tree shone through one of the broken windows, like a beacon amid the desolation. A shiver ran down my spine, but my curiosity was too strong. I turned on my camera, determined to document every moment, and ventured inside. The house greeted me with an icy cold and deafening silence. Empty rooms stared at me with invisible eyes, and the old wood creaked under my steps, almost as if protesting my intrusion. But it was the Christmas tree that captured my attention, its vibrant green in stark contrast to the dust and decay surrounding me. Dusty gifts lay at its base, wrapped in faded, time-worn paper. It was in this scene of shattered dreams that I began my descent into a mystery that would change my life forever. As I explored the ground floor, each room seemed to tell a tale of abandonment and decay. Once luxurious furniture was now covered in a layer of dust and oblivion. Walls, once vibrant, were now faded, with peeling wallpaper. The flickering light of the Christmas tree cast eerie shadows, making me jump at the slightest noise. It was a silence so deep that every step echoed like a reverberation in that mausoleum of lost memories. I felt as though I were treading on the remnants of a dream that had once been alive and vibrant. Curiosity pushed me forward, but I couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease creeping into my heart. As I approached the tree, I looked at the gifts. They were carefully wrapped, but the paper was yellowed and fragile, as if they had been left untouched for years. I wondered who had placed those gifts under the tree in such a forgotten house and why. That's when I heard footsteps above me. Light steps, as if someone were walking cautiously. My heart leaped into my throat. I knew the house was abandoned, and yet that sound. It couldn't be the wind or the house settling. Someone, or something, was there with me. With the camera still in hand, I decided to investigate. Every fiber of my being told me to run, but my mission was to uncover the truth, whatever it may be. I climbed the stairs slowly, the wood groaning beneath my feet. Tension grew with each step, and my mind raced with all possible explanations. The door to a room upstairs was ajar. I paused for a moment, taking a deep breath to calm my pounding heart, then pushed it open cautiously. The interior was dark, except for a faint glimmer of light seeping through a crack in the blinds. And there, in the middle of the room, was she. A porcelain doll seated on a chair, her vacant eyes staring into emptiness. Her appearance was unsettling, with a painted smile that seemed almost mocking. I approached, and it was then that I saw the inscription on her back, "Forever yours, Emily." The name sounded familiar. It was the name of the previous owner's daughter, a child who had mysteriously disappeared many years ago, on Christmas night. The puzzle was starting to come together, but each piece that fell into place only led to more questions. There, in the dimness, the doll almost seemed alive, a silent witness to secrets lost in time. I couldn't tear my gaze away from her empty eyes, feeling a shiver run down my spine. "Forever yours, Emily." The phrase echoed in my head, a cryptic message from a forgotten past. I decided to explore the rest of the room, hoping to find further clues. It was a child's room, with traces of a faded pink on the walls and toys scattered here and there, silent witnesses to interrupted happiness. Yet, everything was covered in a layer of dust and neglect. At that moment, the camera I held captured something unexpected, a slight movement of the doll. I turned abruptly, but she was still, as if nothing had happened. My rational mind tried to convince me it was just a trick of the light, but a part of me knew there was something more. Determined to learn more about the family and about Emily, I descended the stairs again, heading for the house's library. I knew that if there were any information to be found, it would be there. The room was filled with dusty books, documents, and old photographs. I began searching frantically, the need for answers driving me forward. After hours of searching, I found old newspaper articles and diaries that told the story of the Jones family and Emily's disappearance. The child had vanished without a trace on Christmas night and was never found. The parents' despair was palpable on every page, in every word written. It was deep into the night when I decided to give the house one last look before leaving. As I climbed the stairs again, I heard footsteps once more, but this time they were not mine. My heart stopped. There was no doubt someone was walking in the hallway upstairs. I reached the top of the stairs cautiously, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The door to Emily's room was now wide open. I approached slowly, breath held, and what I saw froze my blood in my veins. The doll was no longer on the chair. Instead, she stood in the center of the room, her vacant gaze fixed on me. "Forever yours, Alex," she whispered with a voice that seemed to come from another world. In terror, I ran out of the house, without looking back. My camera, which I had left running throughout my escape, recorded every desperate step of mine. Once home, I reviewed the footage, searching for a logical explanation for what I had experienced. But on the video, there was no sign of the doll's movement or her spectral voice. There was only the image of the doll, motionless on the chair, as if nothing had happened. Since that night, I haven't been the same. My dreams are haunted by the empty gaze of that doll and her voice that continues to whisper my name. Yet, I can't help but wonder, what really happened in the Jones house that Christmas night? And who was Emily really? In the days that followed, my mind was tormented by unanswered questions. I couldn't escape the image of the doll staring at me with those empty eyes and the voice that whispered my name. Despite the fear I felt, I knew I had to return to the Jones house. I had to uncover the truth about Emily. With a determination mixed with apprehension, I found myself once again in front of that decrepit house. It was a gray and foggy afternoon, the atmosphere filled with an almost palpable tension. As I entered, a sense of déjà vu washed over me, as if the house had been waiting for me. This time, my attention was drawn to an old piano in the dining room. Strangely, I hadn't noticed it during my first visit. I approached and touched the keys, which produced a discordant but somehow melancholic sound. It was then that I noticed a series of photos resting on the piano, all depicting a blonde girl with a sweet smile, Emily. In those pictures, Emily appeared happy, full of life, so different from the unsettling image of the doll. As I looked at the photos, a chilling cold filled the room, and a whisper filled the air. "Help me, Alex." The voice was faint, almost choked, but clearly that of a child. My heart began to race. There was no one else in the room but me, and yet the voice seemed so real. Driven by an irresistible impulse, I began searching throughout the house, hoping to find something that could help me understand who Emily truly was and what had happened to her. My journey led me back upstairs, to Emily's room. The atmosphere had changed. It was no longer just a cold and abandoned room. Now it seemed imbued with palpable emotion, a kind of sadness and despair. It was here that I found her diary, hidden under the dusty mattress. The pages were yellowed, but the writing was still legible. Emily wrote about her dreams, her fears, and an imaginary friend who visited her at night. The last pages were unsettling, talking about a game the imaginary friend wanted to play, a game she didn't want to play. As I read, a chilling wind swept through the room, making the windows rattle. Suddenly, I heard a noise downstairs. It was the sound of something falling and shattering. With my heart in my throat, I raced down the stairs. In the dining room, the piano was closed, and Emily's photos were scattered on the floor, as if they had been thrown by an invisible hand. And there, in the midst of the chaos, was the porcelain doll. Standing, staring at me with those empty eyes. "It's not over, Alex," the voice whispered, now clearer and more defined. A shiver ran down my spine. What Emily wanted, or whoever or whatever was speaking through her, was a mystery that I felt compelled to unravel. The weight of Emily's words, or whoever or whatever was speaking through her, echoed in my mind. "It's not over, Alex." These words intertwined with the cold that enveloped me, leaving me with a profound sense of unease. The porcelain doll, with its empty eyes, seemed to be watching me with an almost human intensity. I realized I had to go further. I had to uncover the connection between the doll, Emily's disappearance, and that voice. Armed with a flashlight and camera, I decided to explore the basement, a place I had avoided during my previous visit. The descent into the bowels of the house was like a journey to another world. The air was cold and damp, and the stone walls seemed to close in around me. In the distance, the sound of dripping water echoed eerily. Deep in the basement, I found an old wooden trunk, covered in cobwebs and dust. With a mixture of curiosity and fear, I opened it. Inside were old toys, a child's clothes, and some drawings. The drawings depicted a girl and a dark, looming figure, tall and menacing. Each image was more unsettling than the last, showing the dark figure getting closer and closer to the girl. A shiver of horror ran through me. Could it be that Emily had been terrorized by something real and not just an imaginary friend? My hands trembled as I placed the drawings back in the trunk. It was then that I heard a sound behind me. I spun around, illuminating the darkness with my flashlight. In the darkest corner of the basement, my eyes landed on an old mirror covered by a drape. I pulled it aside, and for a moment, I saw the reflection of a girl in a white dress, her sad eyes staring at me. Then it flickered and disappeared. It had only been a moment, but I was certain of what I had seen. As I rushed out of the basement, I felt a cold wind blowing at my back, as if something or someone were following me. I returned to the room with the porcelain doll, which had remained motionless in its place. "Emily, is that you?" I asked aloud, the camera pointed at the doll. There was no response, only the silence that seemed to weigh even heavier. I decided to leave the house, but I knew my search was far from over. I had to understand what had truly happened to Emily Jones if I were to find peace. As I exited the house, I heard that voice again, a whisper carried by the wind. "Find the truth, Alex." In the days that followed, I immersed myself in historical research, searching for everything I could find about the Jones family and the circumstances of Emily's disappearance. Every clue seemed to lead me deeper into a labyrinth of unanswered questions. But one thing was clear: I would not find peace until I uncovered what had really happened in the Jones house that Christmas night, many years ago. Weeks passed as I delved into a sea of archives and old documents, desperately searching for a clue that could shed light on Emily Jones's fate. I found old newspaper articles, police reports, and interviews with residents from that time. Everyone spoke of Emily's disappearance as an unsolved mystery, a tragedy that cast a shadow over the Jones family and the Oakwood community. One cold and rainy evening, as I sifted through the last boxes of documents, I found something that sent chills down my spine. It was an old interview with a neighbor of the Jones family, one that had never been published. The man spoke of strange events that had occurred in the house just before Emily's disappearance. He recounted lights turning on and off by themselves, children's laughter in empty rooms, and an unsettling presence that could be felt throughout the house. But the most disturbing part of the interview was the description of a man who had been seen multiple times around the house in the days leading up to Emily's disappearance. A man whom no one knew, who seemed obsessed with the child in the house. The neighbor's words echoed in my mind. Was it possible that Emily hadn't simply disappeared, but that she had been taken by someone? Someone who perhaps had left a mark, a message through the porcelain doll? I decided to return to the Jones house, this time with a renewed sense of urgency. I had to find further evidence, something that could connect the mysterious man to Emily's disappearance. When I arrived, the house seemed even more menacing under the stormy sky. The wind howled through the bare branches of the trees, and the rain drummed on the roof. I entered, my heart heavy with anticipation. The house was as I had left it, but there was something different. A sensation, almost as if the air was charged with expectation. I ventured straight into the basement, hearing every step of mine resonate in the silence. In the basement, I found the trunk open, Emily's toys and drawings scattered on the floor. But there was something new, a small wooden box that I hadn't noticed before. Trembling, I opened it. Inside were letters, written in elegant and ancient handwriting, addressed to Emily from someone who only signed as your secret friend. The letters were unsettling, filled with promises of games and adventures, but with a dark and menacing undertone. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Emily had been in contact with someone who had played a role in her disappearance. As I was about to leave the basement, a noise made me jump. It was the sound of footsteps upstairs, heavy and slow. Kneeling among the remnants of Emily's past, I felt a wave of terror wash over me. I was not alone. I rose slowly, the camera in hand, ready to capture whatever was about to happen. I climbed the stairs, every step an echo in a silent house. At the end of the hallway, the door to Emily's room was wide open, a flickering light emanating from within. With my heart in my throat, I approached the door. Inside the room, the porcelain doll was seated on its chair, as if waiting for me. But next to it, there was another figure, a man, his back to me, staring at the doll. I approached slowly, my voice choked with fear. "Who are you?" I asked. The man turned slowly toward me, his face shrouded in shadow. The camera captured the moment when the mysterious man revealed his identity, a truth that would forever change my perception of reality and the mystery shrouding the Jones house. As the man turned toward me, his face seemed weathered not only by time but also by a dark affliction. I realized I had to act. With a mix of fear and determination, I ran out of the house, the camera still in my hand, and called the police. I told them about the mysterious man in the Jones house, a figure that could be connected to Emily's disappearance. When the authorities arrived, however, they found no one. The house was empty, as if the man and the presence I had felt were mere illusions. But I knew there was more to it, a hidden truth that couldn't be easily explained. In the days that followed, my mind was plagued by unanswered questions. The mystery of Emily in the Jones house remained unsolved, with the man vanishing as if he had never existed. That experience had left an indelible mark on me, prompting me to make a drastic decision. I decided to leave my career as a documentarian. The horror and mystery I had experienced had been too intense, too real. But before definitively closing this chapter of my life, I knew I had to share my story. I turned on the camera one last time, and with a solemn voice, I said, "This is what I experienced in the Jones house. A story of mystery and terror, a memory of what hides in the shadows. Sometimes, some truths are better left unsaid." If this story has touched you, if you want to continue exploring the mysteries of this world, subscribe to the channel. For me, it's time to seek a new path. Turning off the camera, I felt relieved, as if I had left an unbearable burden behind. Emily, the house, and the mystery I had touched would remain a memory, a closed chapter in my life. And as I looked ahead, I knew that some answers were destined to remain hidden, lost in the twists of time and fate.